Hi, it's Michael. We just got through week 6. Can you believe it? We're almost there. So, if you haven't taken a look at the course syllabus, I just want to give you a quick overview of where we're going. You might notice this week and next week we don't have any of those videos that I shot because conceptually we're actually just wrapping everything up. Your last real think piece was this week, and just like with every step along the way in this class, I'm not going to uh, penalize you for rethinking some things because that's just the way it goes. In fact, this week, I think where are we at? We have a third draft. So in 1 week, I think, pretty sure this was Matthew. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Matthew. Nice job. So it's really great to iterate. You know, the hope is that the methods that we're using are not really cumbersome. They allow you to be able to change things. And of course, when you're working with things like words, you can just change the word. Rapid change in this discipline is really good to have because each time you're going to want to do it much like a writing assignment where you write something, you kind of give it a minute to sit there, you come back, you read it, you correct the things you don't think are clear, etc. So that's the hope, is that as you're working out the wording, you are going to try to be critical and come up with maybe different ways or edit in some manner. As usual with this class, I'm trying to preview something you're going to do this week, last week, and that's almost always true. So what does this verb thing mean, and why are you looking at different ways of managing navigation patterns? Because verbs are about clicking on things and having things change and moving around your data space. And you need to figure out where to put it. And the biggest problem, which you all will start to have, you're going to have so many problems. I hope you appreciate these are all intentional. That they're a problem that is really challenging to solve. And I think the goal, if you haven't seen the end, is that you're going to use all these techniques that you've practiced to be able to look and see how did somebody do it in real life. And you're going to analyze their choices of how did they structure their HTML? How did they manage the different words and phrases needed to allow people to discover content? And even more interestingly, they're going to allow you to submit content. So you'll actually look at the data that they asked for, and you're going to try to figure out how did they take that data and turn it into this fantastic experience that you may or may not be familiar with, you may or may not like, but still you'll see like you're going to use all this to hopefully have insight because they are all difficult problems. And many sites that you may experience have not solved these problems. Many of you can maybe name some. So why did we do a sitemap? Sitemaps aren't necessarily meant to be a one-to-one relationship between a page and a site. And one thing I noticed pretty much offhand is that you don't want a single page representing one different data element in your table. And in fact, most of you, and this is another difficulty here, most of you might find that there are too many phrases, right? There are just too many things in your taxonomies or maybe even in your data set that are grouped. They just don't fit. And not fitting is why you have to start to leverage these sort of things. Or why you might want to leverage a wholly different way of grouping. And this grouping, as you have experienced, or maybe I gave you the feedback of like, you can sort of make this up. Like you could take many separate parts of your data set, combine them together into a new thing that you then can name. And that can be very creative and fun for an IA to do. And I encourage you to do it. So you don't have to go strictly by what's in your table, but you are representing things in your table. You're just trying to represent it in a way that is more connected to a user goal. For example, in this case, finding a game might, and by the way, we deliberately have not introduced ratings because you'll find once we do that it's a huge sigh of relief, because it's going to be very hard to do one thing this week, which is to sort your table, meaning what's the first record that appears and what's the next record that appears. Now, I happen to know that based on your HTML, it'll probably be those two records, but you're going to start to think, why are they in this order? but not to spoil anything. You'll get there. You'll get there to this week because you're going to take all this abstract stuff. And by the way, your assignment for we have one more week. You're going to do one page this week. Get feedback. As always, please do it early enough to get feedback. If you need to do 3 rounds, like we were talking about, give yourself some time. Do a rough draft on Thursday. Get some feedback. Try again on Saturday. Get feedback and finish it up on Monday. So you'll be able to get some feedback on a page structure this week, and then the next week after that, you're going to actually show a navigation pattern, meaning you're going to go from one place to another. You may follow your sitemap, right? You could demonstrate something on your sitemap, or I'm going to give you and set up a sort of a scenario I think is pretty normal of people coming in and out of context. But you can read that. Make sure you might want to just review, scan the assignment rubric, and get some idea of what I'm going for, because you're going to start to now illustrate things. As to sitemaps, this will be the first page in your deliverable. So if you want to take and copy and paste this into Figma, I'm recommending Figma, although let's just go there really quick. This week's work, where does it start? There we go. We're talking about wireframes. So it's a low fidelity way of doing things. I've done it on pencil and paper, and I actually prefer this, but wireframes can be drawn in a program like Figma, since they are usually just text boxes, that kind of thing. What's really interesting is the positioning of them. Where do things go? And that's why I want you to look back and find navigation styles and patterns you think will be appropriate. Some might come naturally to you, but might not be the best. That's why it might be iterative. If you haven't used Figma, it's hopefully like every one of our tools, you're able to share publicly with everyone here the work you're doing. For feedback, there's a comment mode. Maybe I would comment here or comment there. You guys let me know. I kind of usually like to comment here so people can see that it happened. You can export a picture here. So there's a big old area here to share stuff and some tips. And there's one particular question which will set you up for next week, which is, how do you know that you can click on something? And it's on purpose, because next week you're going to click on one of these. This one week you're just going to show one page of your data shown with some sort of a goal that you've cooked up that you're going to show your records on. And then I'm going to just show, and there's some other ideas about sorting and filtering. There is no video for this week because right now we are just kind of wrapping up and doing what we probably could have started with. You can always just start with a drawing, or yes, you can always start there. But I think hopefully you found it helpful to go through this process to know what is the area, how do you build your decisions? Because if you just start with nothing and just say, here's a perfect, like I think I did that here. I just said, this is the perfect way to do things. But what this implies is lots and lots of data structures. It implies a lot of mechanics. All these things are implied, and to give this over as a requirement is a challenge. Right now, you could just consider it, I want to show to myself that my decisions about the wording and the way the wording and the filters work or taxonomy affects the display is reasonable and kind of works. You might find, reasonably enough, that the decisions you make aren't very useful. So really, this is sort of a prove it to yourself situation. Hey, does this make sense? Does the way I represent my data HTML elements, because you will actually now depict that in a visual. And that's when you might find in many cases, like you were missing an image, hey, it doesn't make any sense to not have an image, but there's no image in my database, for example. I just mean this is the time when you would start to see gaps in your hierarchy. Is the hierarchy and the grouping similar on the page as it is in your database? And the more you try to make them alike, you might start to learn something about the decisions that you made then, and when they're effective and not. And that's all on purpose. All of this is just on purpose to help you learn. There is also some fancy stuff. This is a little bit old, but you're always welcome to plug in data to a drawing program. It's pretty cool, works great. We don't have to do that, but if you want to play around with that, you can do that. You can also, if you want to have a real jump, you could probably build a bit of your interface in Airtable because they have a whole interface developing kit now. But the point isn't to develop a fabulous interface. The point here is to understand the choices that you made and when are they working and when are they not working to help people navigate and find things within your data set. So that's week 7. Next week is one more week, as I said, of doing a flow. And then lastly, that will be turned in, and then we move into the really fun part, hopefully, which is knowledge and how does it make one thing better than another? That'll get us into ratings, all the kind of stuff that hopefully is going to be exciting to explore. And then wisdom for the last week. And during that, I'll talk a little bit more about the final paper. But right now, just focus on this deliverable and enjoy this week. Contact me. If anyone would like a meeting, I'm more than happy to. If you want an individual meeting, we can talk, call, anything you like, just to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. Hopefully, that's my goal. Thanks.